Hi again, everybody. This is Dusty with the StarCraft 19 BHS. I want to go over some procedures as soon as you get to your campsite and what you need to do to make sure that you are good to go. The first thing I like to do is get out of the truck and look at the place I'm going to be parking when the camper is in that position, and I go to the back and I assess, is it level? If you are uneven, which means if one side is higher than the other, we have provided some additional blocks that you can put under your tires. You can do the pyramid type stack here, or you can just stack them on top of each other. Either way, you can give yourself a couple extra inches to level the camper out. Now after the camper has been leveled and you feel good with where it's at, the very next thing you want to do is to drop your chocks right behind the tires. You're going to do that on both sides. Alright, after we get to the campsite, we've got the chocks down, it's been leveled. The first thing we want to do is get the sway control and the weight distribution off. Sway control is very easy. What you want to do is loosen it up by turning it counterclockwise. When it's loose, you can then remove the pins on either side. You want to put those, as soon as you take those off, I'm going to put those back on. Put one down, that makes it a little easier. Put it back on. And I'm also going to put it on this side. This will prevent us from having to worry about finding these things later on, because they're going to be back on
where they belong.
Where they belong. Next up, we're going to prepare to take the weight distribution off. I'm going to go ahead and insert the pipe onto the top hook here. I'm going to apply just a little bit of pressure, so in the event that there's a lot of downward force, the bar doesn't come out. Remove the pin. At this point, I'm going to slowly allow the chain to drop. You'll hear a loud noise, nothing to be worried about. And it just drops right off. With the pin, I'm going to put it back right where it was so we don't lose it. Now the next part is a little tricky, and it may require a little testing here. You need to rotate this bar. You can watch it. You can watch the pin here. When it gets to the point where it's fully extended and it's pointing to the corner of the car, that's when you want to start wiggling, and when you wiggle it, it'll drop out. Just like that. Ready?
Okay, other side.
I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Put the metal bar on, pull the pin, slowly work the chain down, drop it, put the pin back in where it was. It's kind of like kindergarten. Put it back where you found it. It makes everybody's life a lot easier. Once again, we're going to put this to where it's cornered, facing the corner of the truck, and you're going to give it a little wiggle. You lift up on one side. I think that helps to make it even inside of there. And it'll just drop right out. Once we have them both out, we're going to put everything back into this bin. And there we go. We'll close it up. Now that the weight distribution and the sway control is off, the next thing we want to do is go ahead and remove the pin from the hitch receiver. We're going to pull up on that, and we're going to insert the pin here to make sure that we do not lose that thing.
It should be loose.
It should be loose, and you want it up to make sure it doesn't get caught. Okay, now, big thing here is as I'm jacking this up, I want you to make sure that you leave those chains on. That's for your own safety. You never know how the camper is going to respond when you put it down, and those chains will provide you a level of protection and safety. I like to just make sure that we are centered here on those blocks. It looks good to me. Sometimes it gets a little tight in there. We're just going to keep on lifting. Give it a little downward pressure to the truck, and it just pops right off. Notice, I didn't have to jump on the truck. Just be careful when you're doing that to make sure that you try to stay safe. At this point, our chocks are down. Our tongue jack is good to go. I'm going to go ahead and release the chains now that we do not need those any longer. And release the emergency brake. And it comes right on off. Now the next step before you do anything else is to go ahead and pull, oh excuse me, see, that's why you always take a double check, and unhook your electrical. Now I'm going to pull up just enough to where I have clearance so I can lower the camper back down and give it a nice flush sit. Hey everybody, Dusty here, back with the StarCraft 2017 19 BHS. As you can see, the camper is not level. We just pulled the truck out and we are ready to drop the camper to make sure it is level. That's the next step that you want to take. So, as you're watching, our beautiful camera woman here, she's going to tell me when we're level. It's a lot easier whenever you have somebody to help you. So I'm going to keep taking it down. And she's watching. She's going to give me a thumbs up here in just a second. Oh my goodness. Okay.
Sorry.
All right, we are good to go. Now, right after you finish leveling, what you want to do is, the next thing you want to do is put your stabilizing jacks down. Very important. Always, when you're using stabilizing jacks, always have the pads. That way they have something to rest on and you're not digging into the ground. Okay? It distributes the weight a lot better. Pause. All right, so we have the stabilizing jack down pretty low here. Now the thing to remember about stabilizing jacks, they are not to lift the camper up. They are to make sure it doesn't move left and right, or front and back, however you want to look at it. They're just to make sure that it doesn't move. They're to stabilize. So don't try to jack it up and try to get it off the ground using these jacks. Just make sure you got it on the pad and you get it tight. And it should be a little difficult to pull, but don't get to the point where you're putting all your energy and might into it. And then we're going to stop there and move on to the next ones.
All right. So this is what it'll look like on both sides. They'll both be down.
Okay.
And your chocks in the middle.
And the last thing to remember, just like with all the other parts that we're going to have for you available, everything, when you're finished, excuse me, everything goes back in this front compartment. We've got our towing mirror, we have our weight distribution, and we have our sway control, and we have the bar to release the stabilizing jacks.